Welcome to our training. Um, it's a beautiful day. It's a great day. And today we are going to cover a very important topic, which I'll tell you here in a second. But I really appreciate you for being a part of these trainings that we do quite often here at Dynamo Methods. I'm one of the certified coaches and trainers, and I happen to be the founder of Dynamo Methods. But I have other coaches and trainers that help me to deliver these trainings. So, I just want to say again, thank you for being here. And today, I want to talk about something I see all the time with senior leaders, executives, business owners, and leadership teams. And that's is something I call the executive rescue trap. The executive rescue trap. Now, some of you know that I'm really big on delegation. I'm big on transferring ownership. I'm big on developing, helping people to sharpen their skills and so they can take on more responsibilities and not to overwhelm them, but also to give them a chance to grow so that at any given point, if they ever step away to do something else or go work for another company, they are going to be valuable because yes, the more valuable they become, the more they are going to help you as a leader, the more they are going to help your organization. But at the same time, I believe they're not going to work for you forever. So, just out of the spirit of wanting to develop other people and fulfilling the purpose that I believe you've been called, being a leader, part of our jobs is to develop other people. So there's a trap. It's called the executive rescue trap, and I get to see that a lot. So this is when senior leaders keep getting pulled back into problems. They keep on getting pulled back into decisions, conflicts, escalations that should have been handled somewhere in the organization and potentially by a manager underneath them or someone in a different department, but you find yourself being pulled into this. And we call this, being pulled into the weeds. And actually, as we are discussing about this particular topic on basically what we are going to call it, I figured it's just the aspect of being pulled back into the weeds. The things that matter, but they can be done by someone else, and not because you are lazy, but because you have higher responsibilities and what we call higher value activities and tasks and projects that you can handle. So the most frustrating thing is that most executives I know do not want to spend their day in the weeds. They want more strategic time. They want more time to think. They want more time to plan for the present and the future. They want more time to develop people, but they also want more time to focus on the future. But instead, their calendar gets filled with employee issues. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. It gets filled with customer escalations. It gets filled with manager questions, team conflicts, operational decisions, and problems that should have been solved 2 levels down or even 3 levels down. But by the end of the week, they are likely to feel frustrated. I've been there before, not because they are unwilling to help, but because they cannot seem to escape the role of the rescuer. Again, today we just want to discuss on how really that happens, how you get to become the rescue manager, the rescue person, the answer man, the answer woman, how you get to be trapped by that, what we call the rescue trap. And here's the main idea for our conversation today. Many executives think they have a time management problem, and I get to have these kind of conversations a lot. What they actually have is a leadership system problem. At Dynamo Methods, and I get to lead the company, I have that privilege. We focus on two main systems. We focus on business operating systems and we focus on leadership operating systems. And obviously, the leadership subject has been around for a long time. And it wasn't until 3.5 or 4 years ago that I kind of figured that leadership can be a system as well. And one of my books that I published last year in 2025 June has as leadership and people as one of the systems every single business needs to have. And then I published another book called The Multiplier Leader, how great leaders multiply people, purpose, and impact. And it's all about leadership operating system. So most of the senior leaders I get to talk to don't really have a time management problem. They don't have a priorities management problem. What they have is a leadership system problem. So that is what we are going to unpack today. And I want to give you a practical framework that you can use with yourself, your leadership team, or your manager. And I call this framework RDIR framework. I know it doesn't really flow very well, but I couldn't come up with something that flows very well. And the framework is: you recognize, you diagnose, you interpret. You recognize, you diagnose, you interrupt, and then you rebuild. You recognize that you are trapped, or you're about to get trapped by the rescue not capabilities, rescue habits. You diagnose to figure out where it's coming from, to figure out the root cause of all these escalations that are coming to you. You get to interrupt, find a way to interrupt that pattern, and that might require a little bit of development and training. And then you rebuild, so you can have a system that you can use yourself, but also duplicate throughout your organization. So this framework will help you to break the executive rescue cycle and start moving ownership and decision making back to the right level, back to where it should be done. Now, again, this is not about you acting all like a big shot or being lazy. It's about you recognizing that you have people that are working underneath you. Under you, not underneath you, people that are working under you, managers, supervisors, leaders, who have the potential to be developed, or they're already developed, but since they are used to coming to you, they keep on escalating everything to you. So let's start with a situation that probably feels familiar to you. A manager walks into your office or sends you a message that says, "We have a situation." You listen, you ask a few questions, you quickly understand the issue. And because you have experience or you've done this before, you can see the answer faster than they can. That's very natural. You step in, you make the decision, you give direction, you resolve the issue. And in that moment, it feels productive. It feels responsible. It feels helpful. The problem is you solve the problem, but then it happens again, or it's likely to happen again, because what you just did, you solved the problem for them. Now you are trying to help, because what I hear people say, and I used to say this a lot when I used to do leadership in other people's companies, is that I want to get this person back to work. So I'm just going to jump in and save the day. I'm going to jump in and solve the problem. I'm going to tell them what to do because they asked. And you feel like a hero. And to an extent you are, but it's likely to incapacitate that person, because what if you're not there tomorrow? What are they going to do? And that's why they get to call you or send you a message all frantically, because they're used to you solving their problems, and now you're nowhere to be seen. So that can be a problem. So if it happens again, which is likely to happen, and again, over time, something subtle begins to happen within your team and within your organization. Managers start bringing more issues and decisions to you, whether it's at a professional, on a professional level, or in a professional environment, or even in our social circles. The more you help, the more people get to recognize you as someone who takes care of stuff, someone who gets things done, someone who is a great problem solver. And from my experience, you get more stuff thrown your way. I've seen that happen at my church. I've seen that happen in my social circles. I saw that happen when I used to do leadership. I've seen that happen in my company as well. And the same stuff that I'm discussing with you right now, I'm practicing those things. And one of the things I've written down on my desk is that whenever someone asks me a question, my reflex response should not be, "Hey, let me solve it for them." It needs to be me asking questions, which I'm going to share with you here in a second. Some of the questions that you can ask. So as you're growing, I'm growing as well in that capacity, because if someone asks a question, whether it's about a program that we are developing, or a question that a customer has, I've done this for 10 plus years. So most likely I have an answer for that. And I might feel like it's responsible for me to just respond and give them the answer. But again, like I said, it doesn't help them that much. So again, managers will start bringing issues and decisions to you. Employees are likely to start waiting for direction from you. Teams are likely to stop exercising judgment, or getting to slow down and ask themselves questions. What's the best way to solve this problem? What's the best approach for this particular project? As teams are likely to stop, again, making decisions on their own, problems are likely to start traveling up instead of being owned where they belong. And in this case, could be a level below, one level below you, or two levels, or three levels. And again, you and as an executive, the goal is not for you to step away from everything, but it's to acknowledge that there are people that are capable of taking care of stuff. So you don't have to do that all the time. So before long, you are likely to become the what we call the organization's default decision maker. So, like I said, I want to be clear: helping is not the problem. Leaders should help. We need to help, and there are times that we are required to help. We should support our team members. We should coach our team members. We should remove barriers for them. The problem is when helping becomes rescuing, or at least helping turns to become rescuing, because helping builds capability. We know that. Rescuing creates dependency. And that's a subject we discussed last week when we did our training on how to either minimize or reduce and to an extent eliminate dependency within your organization. Helping asks questions like, what do you recommend? Like I said, there are specific questions you need to ask whenever someone comes to you. Rescuing says, here is what we are going to do. Basically, you are telling them. And you'll be surprised how so many people don't mind being told what to do. Now, if you talk to a lot of people, especially on our social circle, they are likely to say, I don't like being told what to do, or I make my own decisions, or I'm my own man or my own woman, whatever they say. But you'll be surprised how so many people don't mind being told, because if you can give them a shortcut, not everyone, but a lot of people, they're okay with that. So they don't have to think, they don't have to slow down, they don't have to use a lot of their mental and emotional muscles to figure something out. But again, that creates dependency, and you don't want that. So helping builds capability. Rescuing gets to choke the leadership capacity. And that distinction matters, because the goal of leadership is not to become the answer to every problem. Let me say that again. The goal of leadership is not to become the answer to every problem. The goal is to develop problem solvers within your team and within your organization. So before we get into the framework that I told you, I want to show you the cycle, or at least explain to you the cycle that many organizations fall into. And I wish I had slides, but I don't. So I'm just going to walk you through it. So I call this the executive rescue cycle. It usually starts with unclear expectations. That's almost always where it starts. People are not sure what they own. They are not sure what decisions belong to them. Authority is a little bit vague. Responsibilities are either vague or they are blurred in a way. There's a lot of gray lines. So what happens? Escalations get to increase. Questions move upward, problems move upwards, decisions move upward, then executives become rescuers. And most executives rescue for good reasons. Like I said, they want to help, they want to protect the customer, they want to support the team, they want to support their managers, they want to keep things moving. But then that creates dependency, or at least if there's some level of dependency, it grows, and the team starts learning something that is not good for them, and it's not good for you, and it's not good for the organization. When things get hard, leadership, they're likely to feel like when things get hard, or when we need to make a tough decision, or when we need to have a tough conversation, then leadership is going to take care of it. And by leadership, I mean you, the senior leader. And when dependency grows, executives get overloaded. That's very predictable, because again, you already have most likely, I believe, you have a lot of things on your plate, things that you got to take care of. So when you have all these things being thrown at you, and because you've been to an extent the most responsible person in the organization, then you are likely to put your staff on the side, take care of all these, so to say, emergency urgent stuff, and then you either have to work extra hours, or you keep on pushing your stuff forward. And that's, again, it's not good for you, because you also want to have that work-life harmony. The executives are likely to be overwhelmed. Strategic work is likely to suffer. Leadership capacity within the team is likely to stall, because, like I said, helping them and developing them and slowing down to coach them builds leadership capacity. Rescuing, it incapacitates that leadership capacity. So the pattern looks like this. We have unclear expectations, which lead to an increase in escalations, which leads to executive rescue, which leads to dependency within the organization, and then there is executive overload. And predictably, you can guess what's going to happen if you, as an executive, gets overwhelmed or you get overloaded. Then the strategic side of the business and the organization is likely to suffer. So here's one of the most important leadership truths in this whole conversation that we are having today. Every repeated rescue teaches the team something. So every time you jump into rescue, every time you jump in to make a decision on their behalf, you are teaching them something. Where you are teaching them that when in doubt, they need to pass it on to your boss, to their boss. When in doubt, they need to pass it on to you. They need to wait for approval. They need to bring the problem to the leadership, and people like to use that term. Let's take it to the leadership. Let's take it to management. And they feel like someone else needs to make that decision now for different reasons. If they have not been taught on how to make objective, systemized decisions, then they are likely to hold back or hesitate from making decisions because they don't want to mess up. And especially if they have messed up in the past and they either got in trouble for it or they cost the organization a lot of money or something, then they are likely to hesitate. So no one is really going to say all these things. Nobody's going to say, hey, I don't want to make a decision because I'm afraid. But behavior teaches culture. And over time, people learn that the safest decision is often no decision at all. I worked with an organization as an employee between 2008 and 2010 or 11. And our original training director used to say that sometimes the worst decision is not to make a decision at all. Sometimes the worst decision you can make is not to make a decision at all. Obviously, she said you need to gather all the information, and based on the information that you have, you need to make a decision. And sometimes it's to make a decision not to make that decision. But not making a decision can become the worst decision that you can ever make. So when people are not trained on how to do it, or they got in trouble in the past, they are likely to hesitate. So over time, again, people learn that the safest decision is often not making the decision at all. And that is where dependency begins. So how do we break this cycle? How do we break the executive rescue cycle? The answer is not to become unavailable. Like I said, it is not to stop supporting your managers and your team members. It is not to become harsh or distant or hands off. That would be bad leadership. And you and I can agree on that. The answer is to change how you respond when problems move upward, when people come to you, when they open that door, when they call you, when they send that chat message and say, hey, you got 10 minutes, which end up becoming 45 minutes, even sometimes an hour. So this is where the framework, the RDIR, comes in, which is recognize, diagnose, interrupt, and rebuild. So each step is going to help you move from rescue to leadership development. So let's walk through each one of these steps. So step number one is to recognize. You cannot break a pattern if you have not identified it, or if you don't know what it is. And to an extent, if you have not named it, you got to identify that. Many executives are so used to rescuing that they no longer see it as a pattern. They just do it. They just see each issue individually. They see a customer issue as just a customer issue, a manager question, or an employee conflict over there, a decision that needs approval, a meeting that turns into a problem-solving session, a quick call that becomes a 45-minute operational deep dive. Individually, each one of them makes sense. If you look at them, if there's a customer issue, a manager has a question, you need to have a difficult conversation with someone, you need to jump into a meeting real quick. All those, when you look at them individually, they make sense. But collectively, they reveal some kind of a pattern. Why are they always coming to you? Now, there might be other executives in your organization that are doing the same thing, but that's still a pattern. how come whenever there's a decision to be made, they'll be like, hey, can you come to our meeting real quick? We just want you to sit in the back and listen in. And I used to fall for that trap, by the way. And what I realized is that besides my time, yes, it might be only 10 minutes, but it's costing me way more than 10 minutes. Because if I'm working on a project or working on a book, like now I have my next book that it's going to be out here in a few months. If I'm working on that and I get a message, it kind of pops up on my screen. Hey, can you hop on a call real quick? Or can you jump into a meeting? Can I call you? And I say yes. I get distracted from what I was working on. Even if it takes 10 minutes, it's going to take me a long time to get back to the same level of concentration and focus. Now, I'm not sure whether this statistic is true, but many years ago, not many, about maybe 7 years ago, I came across a statistic that said that whenever you get distracted from the thing that you're working on, it takes an average of 11 minutes to get back to the same level of focus. Now, that was 7 years ago. Most likely, it's way longer than that, because truth be told, on my computer, I have my browser open, I have my emails, I have my chat. Sometimes I have LinkedIn open, and if I get distracted, I might feel unconsciously that is an excuse for me to relax a little bit or check what's on LinkedIn, and before I know it, it's 30 minutes past. After I got distracted. So you really want to protect your time. So when you look at all those escalations separately, they look like they are more like standalone issues, but collectively they when you look at them individually, they look like they're just standalone issues, but when you look at them collectively, they reveal a pattern. So the first question is, where am I repeatedly solving problems that someone else could be learning to solve? That's a question you and we need to ask ourselves. Where am I repeatedly solving problems or handling issues that someone else could be learning to solve? This is a powerful question, not because not just what problems did I solve this week, but what problems did I solve this week that someone else could have solved or should have been learning how to solve. There's a company I applied to work for many years ago, and I believe it was probably 2008, and I didn't get the job. But I learned something from the guy who interviewed me. His name is Pierce, and we never stayed in touch. So we sat down, and somehow we got into a conversation about delegation and about leading other people. I was interviewing for a VP of operations, and one of the things he said is that sometimes they are short-handed in their department, and he said, if I'm going to fill in a position, then I always bring someone with me to cross-train them. And I was like, okay, so if you're short-handed, then why are you pulling someone from a position that's going to make you more short-handed? And he said, I don't want to be the person who fills in the positions, because that's going to teach them that I'm always going to be available. So I'll rather sacrifice production for a day or two. So I'll be in a position, I'll be cross-training someone, because I don't want to be pulled into that position all the time. Now, it didn't make sense for me at that time, because I was like, you're already short-handed. Why do you need to put someone from a different department or a different role to come and help you with this? But looking back, it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes you got to slow down. It's going to cost you extra time, money, and resources, but it's going to benefit you big time. I still struggle with that, by the way, most of the times, because there are some things I can knock out very quickly, whether it's working on a landing page or a marketing funnel or just listing a program on our website. I can do all those things, but I have people that can do that. So sometimes I just need to ask, and it might pull them away from something else they're working on, but that's going to save me a lot of time. Or if I have something that I'm the only one who knows how to do it the way I feel, or at least I have it set to be done, then I'm going to slow down myself, pull someone else from their role, from what they're doing, and then we sit down and we spend an hour or two training them, and that has paid off very well. So it's not theory, it's something that works. All right, so let's move on here. So I'm going to give you some signs that you might be in what we call the rescue cycle. Like you said, the cycle is where you if I can pull the cycle, yep, you have unclear expectations, you have escalation rising or increasing, escalation, executives rescue, dependence grows, and then there's an executive overload. So how do you know if you are in a cycle? So the same types of, if you have the same types of issues showing up to your desk or to your inbox all the time, that's a sign that you are in an executive rescue cycle. If managers bring you decisions instead of recommendations, that's a sign that you are in an executive rescue cycle. If employees bypass their leaders and they come to you, if they bypass their direct manager or their direct leader and they come to you, that's a sign that you are in that cycle. If customer escalations come to you too quickly, and what I mean is, a customer calls and before they even resolve the issue, they just go like, hey, there's a customer who is really upset. Do you want to take this? Now, again, I've done that before and it sounds like you're saving the day and you might be in that particular context, but you're not helping the team. So if the people have been trained very well, if they answer that call, it doesn't matter how mad the customer is. It doesn't matter even if they say, hey, I just want to talk to the manager. Okay. Now that's up to you, the way you see it. But if they want to talk to the manager, you got to ask them some questions. What seems to be the problem? Let me gather as much information as possible. And then you pass them to the manager and then you brief them on what the issue is. So the manager can actually solve the problem instead of them having to go through the mundane stuff of having to ask what the issue is. Now, some people look at things differently. There are those who like to jump in and be the hero, do whatever you want to do. But from my perspective, that's not going to serve you well in the long term. So if team conflicts land on your desk before managers have tried to resolve them, that's also a sign that you are in that executive rescue cycle. If your strategic time keeps getting replaced by operational decisions. Now, if it's an emergency, by all means, you can step in and help. But if you find the time that you had set up for your strategic thinking, strategic decision making, or strategic meetings get replaced by operational decisions, then most likely you are in that loop of the executive rescue cycle. If you leave meetings with work that should belong to someone else, again, you go to a meeting and before you know it, actually you are the one kind of leading the project that they were discussing about because everyone else is acting as if they don't know what to do or they're not confident enough to lead the project. And that last one, especially about the meetings, is a big one. Because again, most of the times when a meeting is called is because we are working on a project or there's a problem that needs to be solved or there's a big initiative that's being announced. Now, I learned the hard way from the professional side and also the social side. Now, from the social perspective in my social circles, there's one thing, I think it was about more than 10 years ago that I noticed. It was a pattern as well. I knew how to do a lot of things. I still do. So we'd go to an event and we are planning, let's say someone's pre-wedding. Now, I'm an African, so whenever someone is getting married, we usually get together a group of friends, and then we recruit other people. So you might find in our WhatsApp group there are like 100 or 200 people, and we get to help them raise money so they can fund their wedding. Okay, from an African culture, then the groom side gets to pay for the wedding. So a lot of people don't have 40, 50, 60 grand to pay for a wedding. So that's something we do. And I was in charge of actually that initiative for many years, for over 7 years within our Kenyan community. I was in charge of that. And what I noticed was, since I had so much experience, every time I went to a meeting like that, even if someone else was leading, I would be able to see some of the challenges they're having, and then I'll raise my hand and I'll give some suggestions. And before I know it, they'll be like, hey, can you be the assistant, or can you be our chairperson? And I took that on, and then I realized, oh my God, all these things are being piled on me because I know how to do these things. So I stopped giving my suggestions, and I would just wait until people make a decision. Then I will go to the leader and I'll say, hey, I have some ideas for you. If you want to embrace them, if I were you, I would do this and this. And even when I was asked to be a part of the leadership for that particular group, sometimes I'll say no. Sometimes I'll say I'll be there, but I'll be very passive. That's how I was able to drift away from that. So sometimes we jump in and we try to help unconsciously. And like I said, it happens quite often in my company, more than I would want to. So sometimes the clearest sign of of executive rescue is a manager bringing you a problem, and by the end of the conversation, you leave with the assignment. So let's say they come to your office and they walk you through the issue, and you know you get to discuss with them. You give them some ideas, and then they go like, I have no idea how to do this, and it's due on Friday. And you're like, you know what, let's just do it together. Basically, you just walk away with homework, and we call that upward delegation. Now, there's a group of people out there, really kind of smart and sneaky managers who always act as if they don't know what they're supposed to do, and they have mastered the art of upward delegation. So that's something you need to be aware of. Now, again, if someone doesn't know what to do, they need to be developed, and if it's something that needs to be done as quickly as possible, by all means, you need to jump in and help. So let me give you an example. Imagine a manager comes to you and says, I'm not sure what to do about this employee. They keep missing deadlines. The executive immediately starts asking questions, diagnosing the employee, recommending the conversation, deciding what should happen, and maybe even offering to join the meeting. Now, that may be helpful, but if you step back and ask this question, who owns this? Now, the manager came to you and they said they have a problem. It's an employee issue. You don't want the employee to quit or to have really bad reputation as a company, or someone saying something. It doesn't matter. It all depends on how big the problem is. Now, since you've most likely you've done this before, you are likely to walk them through the process. But the question is, who owns this problem or this initiative or this project, so to say, of trying to help this particular employee? Is this the executive's issue, or is this a manager's development moment? Okay. If the executive keeps taking back situations, the manager never builds the muscle, and that's the leadership muscle. The executive may solve the immediate issue, but the organization loses a development opportunity. And basically, you as the leader, you lose that opportunity to develop that manager. And I learned this from someone who is really successful, and actually he is retired now, but he was a very successful director of operations for a major organization here in the US. And he's the one who said that whenever someone shows up to my office with all frantic and acting as if it's an emergency, and it could be, my first goal is to slow them down, not to jump in and respond. And he said, whenever someone says, I don't know how to do this, it sends a signal to my brain that that person needs to be developed. When someone says, I'm not sure, it sends a signal that person needs to be developed. If they say, I've done this before, but I need your opinion about this, it sends a signal that they need to be developed so they can grow their confidence. So he taught me to kind of slow down, and he said, it doesn't have to be for minutes or even hours. He said, if you slow down for about 30 seconds, and that means someone walks in and let them vent, and then you go like, hey, do you want to grab a seat? I'm about to go get some water. Do you want some? Like, really, you're trying to delay your response, because the reflex response for most of the leaders is to jump in and rescue. So you as an executive, when you solve the problem, you may be able to solve the problem in the immediate, but the organization again loses that opportunity to develop the person. And that's why recognition matters. That you got to recognize the pattern, you have to name it, you have to be very crystal clear, and probably just watch and see how often it's been happening. It could be once a week, could be every day, depending on the environment that you are in, could be once a month, whenever the monthly numbers and the benchmark numbers come out. It doesn't matter. You are likely to, if you slow down, you are likely to recognize that pattern. So the first move is not to fix the problem. The first move is to recognize that pattern. Number two in the framework is to diagnose the root cause. Once you recognize the pattern, you have to ask, why is this issue on my desk? Why is this issue showing up on my desk pretty much every single week, or every day, or every hour, depending on the pattern that you just recognized? This is where leaders have to slow down, because not every escalation has the same root cause. Of course, they are going to be different. Every manager, especially if you have several of them, they are going to have different things that they are going to escalate to you. Some of them are quite confident. They try to handle things on their own, and then they come to you when things are almost messed up. Others probably they'll never touch it until they get a word from you. So it's going to be very different. Sometimes people escalate because they are not clear on what needs to be done. Sometimes they escalate because they do not have authority, and that's a real thing. If they are being told, just work on the front end part of the project, and then after that come to me so I can approve and give you a go ahead, or just handle the so to say the legwork, and then let me handle the rest. Now that can work if it's a big project, but why not train them on how to do pretty much everything else? If you've trusted them to be a manager in your company, then why not train them to do pretty much everything else, unless there's some sensitive information they should not have access to, which that's totally understandable. So sometimes they are going to escalate the decisions and the issues because they lack competence. So instead of assuming the manager is lazy, weak, or incapable, you need to diagnose what is missing. So it's as simple as that. So you need to recognize, you need to diagnose, and then now we go to the next step number 3, which is to interrupt. This is my favorite. This is the most important part of the framework, and it is the most practical part of the framework, something that you can actually do to solve the problem or get out of that executive rescue cycle. This is the moment when a problem lands on your desk and you have a choice. And the key word is you have a choice. You can rescue or you can develop. And often the difference comes down to the next question that you ask. When a manager brings you a problem, the rescue instinct, like I said, is I know what to do. Let me give them the answer. But the leadership development instinct should be, this is a moment to help them grow. This is the moment to help them grow. So the core question becomes, how do I support this person without taking the decision back? How do I support this person without incapacitating them? How do I support this person without crippling them? How do I support this person without making them be dependent on me? And this is the key. You are not abandoning them when you slow down and get to ask those questions. You are not being dismissive, and you got to be careful. Sometimes it depends with the tone that you use. And as a leader, I believe that you care about the person, and even if they're coming to you 5-6 times a day, you're not going to get all upset and you lose it and scream at them. I hope not, because again, if they're coming to you 5 times in a day, most likely you have allowed that to happen. So you should take a little bit of responsibility in that sense. You're not saying, whenever you slow down and try to ask those questions, you're not trying to you're not telling them to figure it out on their own and just walking away. Now, some leaders do that. They go like, hey, you figure it out. I think that's bad leadership, because if they say they don't know, at least I should believe them that they don't know. And if they say I don't know, I might have an idea they know what to do. So probably there's an underlying problem, but I shouldn't walk away and just ask them to figure it out. That can be very costly for the organization. So you are helping them in a way that builds capability instead of dependency. And I'm going to give you some questions that you can use to interrupt the rescue. Number 1, you can ask the question, what do you recommend? If someone comes to you and they say, hey, I think this needs to be changed, or we need to do this, or I was asked to do this, or my team is looking, is asking for this. Instead of jumping in and telling them what to do, you need to be like, what do you recommend? Yesterday, actually the day before yesterday, I got a Google Doc with some suggestions. There's some programs that we are putting out there. And we have a process on how we develop those programs. We usually have a draft. Basically, we call it a program document, which outlines the philosophy behind the program and what it's going to do. And basically, really probably 15, 20 pages of information about the program. Then we create the workbook, and that's the first document. Then we create the facilitator workbook. Then we create the slides, and there are several others as well, including marketing materials. So whenever I create the initial documents, which is the program document and the workbook, I send it to someone else. They look at it, and they'll put some comments in the Google Doc. And after they do that, of course, I'll get to look at those. So I saw a statement the other day, which was more like a comment. Either this needs to be changed or this needs to be different. And my response was, what do you recommend? There was another question that was again in line with really the thing being thrown back at me to decide. And I can make a decision. That's not a problem. I have enough experience, but I wanted this to know what this person is thinking. So I pushed back. Now, they did not complain about it. They were able to take care of it. But again, like I said, I'm growing as well, learning how to throw back those kind of escalations. The next question you can ask is, what options have you considered? That's a very powerful question. What decision do you believe is yours to make? If someone comes to you and they go like, I don't know, you are the boss, you make the decision, then you can be curious enough and ask, what decisions do you feel are yours to make, or what authority do you feel you have? Another question is, what would you do if I were unavailable? If I were not here, what would you do? That's my favorite question. And again, you're not trying to step away and not help people. I don't want to be anybody's savior. That it puts so much pressure on you and me, whether it's in a professional circle or in the social circles. From a personal perspective, I've had people say, "Hey, this is my best friend. We do everything together. We tell each other everything. We are always there for each other. We have each other's numbers on speed dial, and that's okay. That works for you. But I'm going to have days where I'm tired. I just want to sleep all night. I'm going to have days where I don't want to talk to anyone. So I don't have a best friend that we talk all the time, and I don't even want to have someone that depends on me all the time, and they feel like if I'm not there, then their life is going to come to an end. I choose not to have that. Now, I have some people that I have on speed dial, and these are people that actually don't call me all the time, but they know every time they call me, it doesn't matter what time of the day, I'm going to respond. So from a professional perspective, you don't want to be that person that everyone feels, or especially your managers feel that they have to depend on you. So those questions get to change the conversation. They move the manager from reporting the problem to thinking about the problem. Because when you slow people down and ask them, what do you recommend? What do you think is the best decision to make? If I was not here, what would you do? You are getting them to think, and you are teaching them on how to make their own decisions. And before you know it, they will have strong enough muscles to operate without you being there. So they move these questions are likely to move you as the executive from an answer giver coach, from an answer giver person to being a coach. And from a foundational level, a coach is someone who helps you to find your own solutions, or to find solutions to your own challenges and your problems. So let me say this very carefully. Again, there are times when executives need to step in. If there's a legal issue, if there's a major financial risk, if there's a serious customer issue that need to be taken care of, if there's a safety concern or a values violation within the organization, leadership need to step in. You need to step in. If there is sensitive information that someone should not have access to, then you need to step in. So don't feel like, Isaac said, hey, we need to delegate everything, and then you abandon your responsibility to protect some of the stuff that the company has trusted you with. So this framework is not about being passive. It is about being intentional. And the goal is not to avoid every problem brought to your attention. The goal is to stop what you call unnecessary escalation from becoming the operating system. So in the interrupt step, you are asking this question: is this mine to solve? Is this challenge mine to overcome, or to help them overcome? Is this decision mine to make? Is this theirs to solve with my support? Is this a coaching moment, or is this a leadership development moment, or is this a situation where I have to jump in? You got to ask yourself those questions. Now, you don't need hours or even really lots of time, even minutes, for you to make that decision. It needs to be more like my mentor said. Someone makes a statement, should send a signal. This is a development moment. This is a confidence building moment. This is a guidance moment. So you should probably almost always be a coach, or rather be in that frame of being a coach, because again, people are going to come to you with all kinds of issues and all kinds of decisions that need to be made. Let's go to the next step, which is to rebuild. And this is the last one in this framework. This is where you move from handling one rescue moment to strengthening the leadership system. And like I said, most of the executives don't have a time management problem. They have a leadership system problem. So you want to move from handling one rescue at a time, one problem at a time, one issue at a time, to either strengthening the leadership system if you have one, or establishing one. And that I encourage you to do that. When you have a system on how to do things, and it's not about being or robotic, or being so rigid. That's not the point. Actually, systems help you to be more flexible. I have, and I believe you do, I use a calendar. And if someone wants to meet with me, they book a time in the calendar. My assistant has access to my calendar. So some people go through my assistant, others even have a link to my calendar. So when they go there, they will pick a time that I'm available. My calendar gets, my availability gets reflected there, and whatever time that's available, that's what they're going to get. Now, if it's an emergency, they can call me, and that's a different discussion. My calendar system helps me to relax, not to worry about, hey, did someone ask me to meet, or did they send me a text, and then did I forget, or something like that? Because with my calendar, let me back up a little bit. My calendar is automated. You click, you book a time, you get an email, a confirmation email that your this time has been booked to meet with Isaac. You get, if it's going to be virtual, you get an automated Zoom call. I mean, not Zoom call, Zoom link that you get on email, and I have it as well. The calendar gets added to your calendar, whichever calendar you're using, it gets added to mine. So we don't have to worry about, hey, am I going to forget or not? Do I have a link or not? And then you're going to get some reminders. I believe 24 hours before, 2 hours before, and sometimes 30 minutes before the meeting. That's a system. It's a leadership system for me. I don't have to worry about that. And I have systems for other things as well. So a system is going to give you freedom, is going to bring flexibility to you, and you're likely to have more time on your hands when you have a system. So if you happen to be one of those people who are resistant and apprehensive about systems, I encourage you to give it a shot, and it's going to be a game changer for you. So the reason we are talking about this step, or at least you need to go through this step of rebuilding, if you only interrupt one conversation, then you may stop one rescue, you may solve one problem. But if you rebuild the system, you reduce the need for rescue in the future. And that's the goal. You build a system that's going to reduce. And the goal is not to eliminate everything. There's no way you can eliminate every problem and every escalation, but you minimize and you get to reduce that. And the core question here is, what needs to change so this does not keep coming back to me? What needs to change so this does not keep coming back to me? This is a what I call a system question. And senior leaders have to ask system questions, or they should. I recommend you ask system questions. If the same decisions keep coming back to you, you may need clearer, what you call more clear decision rights. What are they supposed to decide on? Who decides on what? So people don't just wait on each other. A good example will be, let's say you have someone in charge of marketing, you have someone in charge of sales, and then you have someone in charge of service delivery. So you find the marketing person puts the messages out there, the leads come in, the leads most likely are going to be captured by a system, or someone is going to fill a form, and there needs to be a clear decision right. Okay, who gets the lead to the salesperson so they can have that sales conversation? Is it the marketing person, or is it the salesperson's responsibility to log into the system or log and see the leads that we have? Or when a phone call comes in and someone needs something to be done, like in our case, to do training, coaching, and systems, then who is going to make what decision? So those are some of the things you have to define. So let's say the salesperson talks to that particular prospect and they buy a product or service from you. Then who gets to move that customer from being a sale to the service delivery so they can get what they bought, or whether something is going to be shipped? So there needs to be very specific and well-defined decision rights to get all those things done. And you can imagine, if nothing has been defined, then the marketing person is going to assume the salesperson is going to get into the system, get the leads. The salesperson is going to assume whenever there's a lead, the marketing person is going to pass that lead to me. And now there's a wait and see, and that can be very damaging. And you can imagine what's going to happen if that problem persists for so long. Most likely you're not going to be in business. So you got to have decision rights on who decides, who recommends, who approves what, who executes on what. If managers keep escalating people issues to you, you may need what you call stronger coaching rhythms. Some leaders in most of the organizations, they do one-on-ones with their team members, or they just do group meetings, department-wise or team-wise, whichever way you do it. If there are so many people issues being escalated to you in between the meetings that you're having, then you may need to establish stronger coaching rhythms or meeting rhythms. And the question is, are managers being developed? Is there a process and a system on how to develop them so they don't have to be coming to you all the time? Are they practicing, having hard conversations or giving feedback or even running meetings on their own? I'm working on my next book, and somehow, not really somehow, because some of you probably know, but I write my books to solve problems. So whenever I see a problem in the marketplace, or some of my clients are asking questions, or the research that we are doing, and we go like, hey, let me write a book to solve this problem. And there's something that keeps on showing up, and that is team meetings and employee meetings and executive meetings being held sometimes unnecessarily, or being extended unnecessarily, or someone like me being pulled into a meeting. And one of the things I wrote down, I'm still expanding on it, is more like a recommendation, and I'm building a system for it, is to enable managers and leaders in every department to be able to run their own functional meetings without the main leader being there. So if it's a sales meeting, they need to do their own meeting. If it's a marketing meeting, they do their own independently, and they need to do it so well so that you only get the updates. Now, obviously, there's going to be, depending on the company you work for, an alignment meeting where you get all these people or these leaders from different departments, so you can have that meeting together. But other than that, you shouldn't be there. Now, personally, I'm in almost every single meeting, and I'm working towards delegating some of the meetings to be run by other people as well. So it's something that costs company and the leaders a lot of time. So meetings, by the way, if you do some research, they are some of the most costly functionalities within organizations. So it's something that you need to be aware of. Let me see. Again, like I said, if employees keep bypassing their managers, you may need to reinforce the chain of ownership. And the question is, are people clear on where to go first whenever they have an issue? I like to say, and it is very true, if someone has a direct leader and they come to me, I like to, I'll slow down and I'll be like, hey, thank you for asking the question or bringing this to me. But have you talked to so-and-so? And I'm referring to their manager. And if they say no, then that's my chance to educate them. And I'll say, by the way, that person is likely to give you the answer to your question faster than I can, because they work with you every single day. They are closer to the issue than I am. So you may want to talk to them, or if it's an emergency, I'm going to help you this time, but next time, make sure you talk to them before you come to me. So it's an opportunity for me to educate them, not just to send them back and say, hey, go talk to your manager, then come back to me if they don't solve the problem. That's likely to make them feel like you just dismissed them. Now, if again, they keep on coming back to you, there might be a development problem. And the question is, are your managers actually empowered to lead their people? But also on the flip side, are executives like you unintentionally rewarding bypass behavior by responding too quickly? If someone comes to you, you just respond because, again, you want to get them back to work. So if leaders keep waiting for permission, you may need to reward initiative. And this can be can be a big project or a big initiative. It all depends with the size of your company. Some of the companies have a reward program. And at the end of the year, they'll say the person who takes the most initiative, or the person who grew, who exhibited the biggest margin in terms of the growth. I worked for a company that used to do that. So it all depends. But my recommendation is reward good behavior. And in this case, if people are taking initiative, make sure you reward that. either publicly or privately, and it doesn't have to be that expensive. You can just be like, hey, good job on making this decision. And if you're curious, probably you can ask them, how did you make that decision? Do you need any help in making a similar decision in the future? So basically, you are developing through rewarding that behavior, and that can be simply by recognizing them. Let me see. Another question to ask is, do you celebrate responsible risk taking? Now, the keyword is responsible, because it can be very costly when you let people make expensive decisions. So most of the organizations and leaders don't even like to talk about that. But life is at risk, and there's got to be a risk to be taken, so long as it's responsible. Do you support people when the decision was reasonable, even if the outcome was not perfect? And it will never be perfect. If there are some guardrails that you've put and you've trained your people very well, they make a decision. It may not be the exact decision that you would have made, but are you recognizing them for at least trying to make that decision? Because for you to recognize them, obviously you have to look into what they did, and that means you'll be able to identify the gap between what you expected and what they got, and that gap actually is an opportunity for you to develop them. So if not for anything else, just slow down and get to recognize them, so you can get a chance to train them and develop them. Okay, so as we conclude this training, let me just say this. Senior leaders are in a very unique position to make, so to say, the most impactful movement within an organization. Or let me put it this way: senior leaders have the best opportunity to make the biggest impact in an organization, simply because most likely they have managers underneath them, and those managers have employees that they get to lead. So whenever a decision comes to you, or a question comes to you, or an issue comes to you, yes, you might help the manager to solve the issue, or you train them, or you coach them, but you're not doing it just for that one manager. You're doing it for all the people that are underneath that manager, and the people that are underneath those people. And that means you, as a leader, you got to be ready. You got to be developed. First off, you develop yourself, or you get a coach and get developed. But beyond that, you need to be ready, not to rescue, but to develop people. So when you come up with a leadership system, in this case, a system that's going to either break the executive rescue cycle, or that's going to minimize the aspect of people escalating stuff to you, basically what you're doing, you are reinforcing the escalation system that you put in place. And if you reinforce that, basically you are increasing ownership. People will be able to take responsibility, and when you reinforce ownership, you get more ownership. So this is where executives have to shift from being what we call heroic problem solvers to being the architect of leadership capacity, from being the rescuers to being the developers, from being the problem solvers to being developers of problem solvers. And that is a different kind of leadership. It is less dramatic when you think about it, and it may feel slower at first, like I said, but it scales with time. It might take 90 days, it might take 6 months for you to get there, because the strongest organizations are not the ones who where the executives make every decision. The strongest organizations, I believe, are the ones where more people are capable of making good decisions at a very at the right level. So whether it's going to be a supervisor, or a manager, or a senior manager, or an executive, it doesn't matter. When you have people throughout the organization who can make the right decisions at the level that they're at, that's when you get to scale and you get to grow as an organization. Excuse me. So let me bring this together. The executive rescue trap is real, whether we like it or not. And it often happens to good leaders, capable leaders, responsive leaders, leaders who care. But there's a danger hidden inside those strengths. So, because every rescue you perform trains your team to wait for you. So my challenge for you is that this week, I want you to ask yourself one question. How many problems did I solve this week that someone else could have solved? How many problems did I solve this week that someone else could have solved. Do not feel guilty if your list is longer than you would have wanted. And I think you need to ask yourself that question with curiosity, because the answer may reveal more about your leadership system than your calendar ever will. You might think you have a time management problem, or you're just have a lot of things on your desk, but most likely asking that question is going to reveal a leadership system problem. So you can use the framework that I just taught you about, which is RDIR. You recognize the problem, you diagnose what is missing, you interrupt the rescue in real time, and then you rebuild the system so ownership and self-responsibility can grow. So the goal is not to stop helping your team. The goal is to stop helping in a way that creates dependency, because organizations do not scale when executives make more decisions. Organizations scale when more people are capable of making those decisions. Until next time, keep leading, keep making an impact, and keep developing yourself. I'll see you next time.